हरिः ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Sanatana Dharma 101 class number 5 organized by International Hindu University. Namasabhaya. So we have so far learnt about Vedas. Vedas are basically guidebook. In English we call it as such books which we have uttermost faith on, and normally we don't question the authority. Those are known as gospels in English. So those are the texts which we have uttermost faith for ages, and we believe in them and we do not question them. Those are known as gospels. And for Sanatana Dharma, the first and foremost Prathama Pramanyam is Veda, Vidajnane. Trayi. Vedas are normally into three types: Rig, Yajur, Sama. And by taking majority portions from Rig Ved and some portions from Yajur Ved, under the instruction of Sage Vedavyasa, his one of his disciples, Sumantu Athava Atharvangirasa Rishi, codified it. Hence the name Atharva Veda. The correct way of saying Atharva Veda is Atharva Veda, not Atharvana Veda. So that's the thing. Very learned Sanskrit Pandits and very learned Vedic Pandits, particularly in the Udupi Gokarna region, are very particular that we call Atharva Veda as Atharva Veda and not Atharvana Veda. So the name Atharva Veda comes from the name of the Rishi, Atharvangirasa Rishi. Hence we should pronounce it as Atharva Veda. And Atharva Veda, there are 2 to 3 shakas in Atharva Veda, but the most prevalent is Pippalada Shaka, which was rejuvenated in the 60 or 65 years back. Until then it was Luptam. Particularly, but in India there were Pandits in Gujarat who were preserving this as a oral tradition. So Vidajnane, Veda not only talks about karma. So if people in general understanding is Veda means it's Yaga Yajna these. Of course, it's about Yaga Yajna which are part of living. So that is what we have to see. Vedas are part of living. If you look at the structure of Vedas, they talk about occupying your time in good things, good deeds, and as we believe in Devatas, we offer obeisance to these Devatas in the form of Yajna Yagas. So the life was occupied by the entire sections of the society in doing Yaga Yajna. That's what we want to see today. Vedas basically help to construct an organized society so that everybody gets benefit out of it. For example, you have to teach Veda. So one sect of people, educators or priestly people, learnt it through oral tradition and they taught it to their students. And in order to protect that country, in order to make the country prosperous, there should be certain sections of people who are soldiers, who are warriors, who take care of the people so that the education and knowledge transmission happens. And then when you have to do yoga, you need to have lot of dravyas. And when yagas are dead, you need to feed lot of people. Similarly, when the society has to function, there needs to be lot of food made. There needs to be lot of trades done, because one country may not be sufficient in everything. So you got to trade them. So for that, certain sections of the people were doing it. Likewise, Vedas structured the society so that everybody could utilize their talents. And then not only benefit, more importantly, benefit others. So that is the importance of Veda. So when Vedas are there, you have to build the Vedika, you have to build the structure. So you need people who are skilled artisans who are able to build a mantap. And then the beauty of the Veda is, after the Avabhrita Snana, that is the final Mangala Snana, every Yaga Yajna has to have a final Mangala Snana with Tirth. So that is known as Avabhrita Snan. After that Avabhrita Snan, the entire area where Vedic ceremonies were performed will be made to fire. So that also helps. So when they are doing another yaga, in those days people were constantly doing yaga. So when there is another yaga that is happening in the next door or the next place, they have to again build. So what was the reason for it? The reason was you are able to give jobs and keep people employed. So for example, if you just leave that mantap like that, then some people can come and use it again. Then where will you give jobs to the other sections of the society? So it was planned in such a way that when the yagas were finished, after the Avabhrita Snana, that entire place will be set in fire. That is the reason normally these Yaga Yajnadis were done on the thats of the river, which will be outside of the city. So there won't be any fire hazard. So people planned that meticulously. So the way of living as codified in Vedas and Upanishads and later on books made sure that the society flourishes out of Veda. It's not simply praying to God, it's not simply doing yaga yajna. Of course, those are the principal components, but when you look at the way they are done, it provided the benefits to the entire society. Imagine one instant when after the yaga is done, they are burning the entire Vedika, the entire mantap, which is constructed outside the city on the banks of the river. So in case if there is some fire hazard, the people were there plenty and the river were flowing abundantly, so they can quench the fire. This was the structure. So the rituals by which you have to do are clearly explained in Yajurveda. And the mantra bhaga of Yajurveda is known as anthology or compilation. And that anthology is known as Samhita. Samhita means collection. Samhita means, and the proper term for Samhita is anthology. That means collection. So these mantras, the explanation, where do you use this particular mantra? For example, the Saptama Kanda of Yajurveda, the 7th book of Yajurveda talks about Ashwamedha Yajna, the mantras used. How do you use them? That is given in the Brahmana Bhaga, Brahmana. When you say Hakara, normally in Sanskrit according to Panini, Hakara will be pronounced as Makara. But this is a Vedic terminology. So it should be pronounced particularly the Brahmana or the explanatory text. Although it is Ha plus Ma, in normal pronunciation in Sanskrit, it will be called Brahmana because Hakara becomes Makara. Whereas in Vedic text, it should be pronounced as Brahmana. That is how they used it because it's a Vedic terminology. Okay, the explanatory text for these mantras, where do you use these mantras? Those are given in the portion of the Vedic text which is called as Brahmana. And the Brahmanas are divided into 3 Ashtakas. And each Ashtaka is divided into subchapters called Prasnas. And each Prasna is divided into 10 lines known as Dashini. That is the beauty of Brahmana. Samhitas are divided into Kandas, 7 books. Each book is divided into chapters called Prasnas. It's like questioning, okay, but it's called Prashna. And then Prashnas are divided into large paragraphs called Anuvakas. And the Anuvakas are divided into 50 word collection known as Panchatis or Panchashat. Panchashat means 50. So this is how Samhitas are divided. Kanda, Prasna, Anuvaka and Panchashat or Panjadi. Panchashat is the correct name. So Panchashat, Anuvaka, Prashna, Kanda. This is how you are dividing the Samhita Bhagas. And the explanation of these mantras, where they are utilized, is in Brahmana. Brahmana is divided into Ashtakas. There are 3 Ashtakas in Yajurveda, Taittiriya Shaka, and each Ashtaka is divided into Prashnas, and Prashnas are divided into Dashini. So, the 7th Kanda of Ashwamedha, it's all about Ashwamedha Prashna. Then, how to utilize those mantras are given in the 3rd Ashtaka, 8th and 9th Prashna. So, 3rd Ashtaka, 8th and 9th Prashna of Yajur Brahmanam gives explanation to the utilities of the mantras that are given in the Samhita Saptamakanda. Okay, so don't worry about it. I am explaining what are Samhitas, what are Brahmanas. Then, an extended portion of the Vedas which were done for contemplation, ध्यान में होकर परमात्मा को, ईश्वर को ध्यान करके मैं कौन हूँ, परमात्मा कौन है, ये contemplation, people went to some isolated place because they did all yagas, they did Ashwamedha. Then people wanted to question themselves, what was the reason I did? What is the phala for this? So it's a contemplation, whether it is a mutual contemplation between the guru and the shishya or internal contemplation. So they went to some isolated places because you need to have some quietness to do this so that you are concentrated on understanding these portions of Veda. And when they did so, those portions of Veda that came out on contemplation or mutual interaction between Sishyas and Guru or Pandits and learned people normally took place in Vana. So those kind of contemplations that took place in isolated places like forest, Vana, is known as Aranyaka. Aranya means forest. So that is the 3rd section. And the last portion of Aranyaka is known as Vedanta. Some people call it as a separate portion, but normally it is considered as part of Aranyaka because when people were in deep contemplation, the final contemplation goes towards Brahman, then Atma. Right? So that is the ultimate thing. Purushartha is to understand the supreme Brahman and Atma. So the Aranyaka's last section is Upanishad. It can be either considered as a separate portion or it can be considered as an amalgamation of Aranyaka. So, Samhita, Brahmana, we now know the correct pronunciation. Brahmana, and the 3rd one is Aranyaka. Uchcharana, Anu Uchcharana, Aranye. So, people went into contemplation, they started discussing. It's like conference in an isolated place. Okay, these days we have conferences in big hotels. Likewise, in those days, people went to forest. Uchcharana, Anu Uchcharana, Aranye, iti Aranyakam or Aranyakam, anything. And then Upanishad. When these people were contemplating, the final contemplation or the supermost contemplation is about Brahman, about Atma. How do I reach that level? What do I do when I reach that level? How do I get the phala? That is known as what? Artha Panchaka. So those things are known as Upanishad. So we now know Samhita. Samhita means collection. Brahmana means explanation. Aranyaka means contemplatory texts that were done in an isolated place. And then understanding of the Supreme is known as Upanishad. While you understand the Upanishads, it also gives some procedures and practices to understand the Brahman and Atma. So what is Upanishad? Shat, Upavishati, mane to sit. So Upanishad comes from the root to sit. So you go sit somewhere and learn things. Then Upa, Ni, Shat. So the Upanishad takes the root from 3 phrases. One, Shat is the basic root to sit. Then there are prefixes to Shat. There are 2 prefixes to the word Shat. Shat mane Upavishati, Tishtati. Tishtati means stand. Upavishati means sit. Shat. Shat mane, the verb for, the root for that is shat. Shat mane sit. That means you go sit. Where you sit? Upa. Upa mane samipe. किसका समीप में? गुरु का समीप में. So you go sit near the guru. If you go sit near the guru, he is going to discuss with you good things. And what does ni mean? Ni means obedience. In Malayalam there is a beautiful say, Thala irundu ketkunnu. What is Upanishad? Beautiful phrase in Malayalam. Thala. Thala means sit down. Irundu means sit. Thala means obedient. You don't show ego in before the guru. That is the word ni. Ni means with obedience or with concentration. Samipe. Upa mane samipe. Shat upavishati. So you go sit near a learned person, whether it can be your father, your nana, your mama, anybody who is good in knowledge. Go near him. You have to seek the knowledge. So the word upa, ni mane obedient or concentrated, either way you can take it. And shat mane upavishati, to sit. So you go before your guru, longing to learn knowledge, upasamipe, guru samipe. Then you sit so that you can have dedicated time with him in a much obedient fashion. When you do that, the discussion will be at an elevated state. It's not going to be about material pleasures. It's going to be at the elevated state. So you learn about Brahman. You learn about society. So that is known as Upanishad. So there are predominantly 10 Upanishads. So many Upanishads. People have chronicled right now about 108 Upanishads have been chronicled. Of that 108 Upanishads, 10 Upanishads are considered to be the prime Upanishads. They are called as Dasopanishad. And Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada has done explanation, Vyakhyana, for all the 10 Upanishads. And then couple of additional things he have done. So right now, if you need more understanding on Vedanta, you need to understand these 10 Upanishads. In English they are called as principal Upanishads. What are those? Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitreya, Aitareya, Chandokya and Brihadaranyakam. Isha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitreya, Aitreya, Taitriya, Aitreya, Chandokya, Brihadaranyakam. Isha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitiriya, Aitreya, Chandokya, Brihadaranyakam. And the beauty is, the largest voluminous Upanishads come at the end. The largest voluminous is Brihadaranyakam. More or less equal to or slightly less is Chandokyam. Kathopanishads are very small Upanishads. Isha tells about Isha Vakyam Idam Sarvam. This entire world is done by Isha. Isha mane Niyanta. Ishwara mane one who does the Niyanta, Niyamana. He is the Adhikari. Isha, Kena, Kata Upanishad is full of knowledge. It is between the Samvad between Nachiketas and Yama. Okay, so that is known as Kata Upanishad. Mundaka, Mandukya, Taitiriya, Aitreya, Chandokya and Brihadaranyakam. So each Veda Bhaga is divided into mantra portions. And those mantra portions are known as Samhita. The explanation and the utilities of these mantras are given in Brahmana. The contemplatory texts and more focused on Brahman and Atma, Aranyakam and Upanishads. There are so many Upanishads, maybe in thousands, but now people have chronicled 108 Upanishads. Some text and understanding are there. Out of that, 10 Upanishads were considered to be the principal Upanishads, and then Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada has done Thapaniya Upanishad, so couple of additional things also he had done, but predominantly 10 Upanishads. So Adi Sankara Bhagavad Pada has done Vyakhyana for these 10 Upanishads, which are known as in Sanskritam Dashopanishad. In English we call it as Principal Upanishads. And Ramanujacharya of Vaishnava Sampradaya, of Visishtadvaita Sampradaya, has taken certain portions from all the Upanishads and he has given his explanation as Vedartha Sangraham, Vedanta Deepam. So instead of taking one particular Upanishad and explaining, he took the essence of all the Upanishads. And then he gave explanatory as a discussion, as a samvad, as a lecture in Tirumala, that is known as Vedartha Sangraham. Sangraham mane brief collection. So he did this, he did not do for each Upanishad, rather his benevolence is to compile the essence of all the Upanishads and give them in explanatory text. He wrote 3 explanatory texts. The first one is known as, for this Upanishad portion or Veda portion, first one is Vedanta Sangraham. Vedanta, second is Vedanta Saram, and the third is Vedanta Deepam. In Dvaita Sampradaya, the Madhvacharya has done explanation for all the Upanishads, or majority of these Upanishads. All mane does. Okay, so for depending upon the Sampradaya, Advaita Sampradaya, Visishta Advaita Sampradaya, and Dvaita Sampradaya, people have done explanation to Upanishads. And if you have to understand Sanatana Dharma, it has been a practice that you need to understand 3 texts. 3 texts you have to understand. The first text is Brahma Sutra ka Vyakhyan. Veda Vyasane, he did in aphorisms, sutra, short, squeezed phrases. In English you call them aphorisms. So one has to know about these sutras done by Veda Vyasa, which is known as Brahma Sutra. So all these Mada leaders have done their commentary on the sutras done by Veda Vyasa. And the sutras are aphorisms, short structures explaining about what is Atma, what is the soul, what is the relationship, what is going to happen after the soul is. Such kind of Vedanta Vishaya is known as Brahma Sutra. And all the Acharyas, whether it is Advaita Shankara or Shiva Advaita, Shri Kantar, there is another religious leader called Shiva Advaitam. He said it's Advaitam, but the supreme is Shiva, that is known as Shiva Advaitam. Shri Kantar. And then came Yadava Prakasha. He had his own interpretation, who was earlier guru for Ramanuja. Then Ramanuja did Vishishtadvaita basis of understanding of Brahma and Brahma Sutram. And then came Madhvacharya, the last. We call it as in main gurus, the last one who did the explanation on Brahma Sutra, which is more prevalent. There may be many after him, but the more prevalent text was done by Dvaita Guru, known as Madhvacharya. Okay, so that is how Brahma Sutra. Okay, now Vedas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutra. So all these 3 we need to. So basically, if you have to understand the Sampradaya, Sanatana Dharma, the preceptors, forefathers considered 3 main texts. What are those? First and foremost, Brahma Sutra. You need to understand the meaning of these aphorisms written by Veda Vyasa, and that Bhashyam, the explanatory text, is paramount importance. The second one is understanding of Upanishad. And the third one is the understanding of Gita. So you need to have the understanding of 3 major texts. The first and foremost major text is Brahma Sutra. The second one is Upanishad. The third one is Bhagavad Gita. And people have also done explanation on Sahasranama. But the first three things are important because these talk about the way of living. Vedas and the concise understanding of Vedas is given as aphorisms by Vyasa, which is known as Brahma Sutra. So the explanation of Brahma Sutra 1, the explanation for Upanishad 2, the explanation for Gita. So this is known as Trayam. These are the source of knowledge for our Atma to travel to its ultimate goal. That is known as Prasthana. Prasthana means to travel. Or understanding, either way, in a generic understanding. So you need to understand the way of living, understand Brahman. So this is the route. Prasthan karo, that means travel, right? So Prasthana Trayam. This is very important in Sanatana Dharma. What is Prasthana Trayam? Prasthana Trayam is Brahma Sutra and is explanatory text. Upanishads, it includes Upanishad, then it includes its explanation. Third one is Gita, and then its explanation. These three are must. Brahma Sutra, Sanatana Dharmi should know Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is nothing but essence of Veda and Vedanga. Vedanta. Then Upanishad. Then comes Gita. So all the religious leaders, whether it is Advaita Shankara or Visishta Advaita Ramanuja, Dvaita Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, Thankarar, Bhattabhaskarar, all these Yadava Prakasha, they were all done explanation to Brahma Sutra without question. Everybody has to do that. So that is the first Prasthanatraya. The second Prasthanatraya is Upanishads and its explanation, predominantly explanation. So Adi Shankara, Madhvacharya did individually on Upanishads. Ramanujacharya did this in a different fashion, in an innovative fashion, where he took the essence of all the Upanishads and then he made it into one corpus, which is known as Vedartha Sangraham. Then additional to that, like Tippani, Tika, Vedanta Deepam, Vedanta Saram, and then Vedanta Deepam. So that is the second Prasthanatraya is Upanishad and its explanation. Third one is Gita and its explanation. So Prasthanatrayam is important for Sanatana Dharma. Then what are the other texts? Other texts are Vishnu Sahasranama, Yaksha Prasna, Sanat Sujatiyam, and then Sanat Sujatiyam, and then Vyaja, the Vyadha Prashna. The Vyadha was a butcher in Mahabharata. So he gave several Vedanta understanding. Vyadha mane to the person to give trouble. So this Vyadha, even though he was a butcher by trade, he was highly enlightened intellectual. So Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada also took steps to understand certain additional pearls in the corpus, such as Yaksha Prasna, Sanat Sudajiyam, and Vyada's portion in Mahabharata. So okay. So but Prasthanatrayam is very important. Brahma Sutra, Upanishad, and Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so that is very important. So we have studied basically the basic text. So we are progressing. Now, apart from these, all these three are basically dependent on Veda. Bhagavad Gita is nothing but Bhagavad Gita is nothing but Krishna Upanishads. It's Upanishad given by Krishna. Okay, so Veda and the essence of Veda given in aphorism forms is Brahma Sutra. Veda mane Vedanta also included. Then Upanishads and then Bhagavad Gita. All the leaders have done, religious leaders have done. Apart from this, there are additional knowledge texts. So ancient Dharma gives 14 different types of learning. Purana Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharmashastra, Anga, Vedanga. Collection of these Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharmashastranga Mishritaha. So your collection of all these Purana, you know that Nyaya is also called as Tarka. Then Mimamsa is basically analysis. Mimamsa. Then Dharmashastra and the Angas. Then Veda, Sthanani, Vidyanam, Dharmasya cha Chaturdasha. There are 14 different knowledge places where you get knowledge. First and foremost, Veda, Vedangas. Then Nyaya. Then Purana. Purana includes Itihas. Then Dharmashastra. Likewise, there are 14. How do you get 14? What is Veda? There are 4 Vedas. 4. And then it says, Vedanga Mishritaha. What are Vedangas? The annex to the Vedas. They are Siksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas, or Jyotisha. There are 6 Vedangas. 4 Vedas and 6 Vedangas. What are the 6 Vedangas? Siksha, the way how to pronounce, the way how to understand is known as Siksha. And then Kalpa. What is Kalpa? The text that talks about Srauta Yajna. How to do these yagas mentioned in Veda is given in a text called Kalpa. And then on what day we need to do the yaga. How the planets are arranged in the solar system. Those are given by Jyotisha. It's not like, okay, tell me if this day is good for me. Will my marriage, matrimony, horoscope match with that girl? That's not the Jyotisha we are talking. The Jyotisha we are talking is to understand the celestial beings so that we could use the auspicious dates and times to do yajna. That is known as Jyotisha. Siksha, Kalpa, Jyotisha and Chandas. How do you pronounce these Vedas? In what meter they have done? That's known as Chandas. And Vyakarana. What is the structure of the Veda? And then Nirukta. Nirukta mane etymology. How these words have been used in Veda. Because Veda Sanskrit is different from the colloquial Sanskrit. That is known as Nirukta. And that Nirukta text was done by a great scholar known as Yaskar. Or Yaskar. And the Niruktam test is known as Yaskam, based on the Muni Yaskar. So 6. 4 plus 6 is 10. We are left with 4 more. What are the 4 more? Purana includes Nya. Purana includes Itihasa, Nyaya or Tarka Shastra. And then Mimamsa. Mimamsa is analysis, which is propagated by Vyasa's student Jaimini and Dharma Shastra. What are these? 4 Vedas. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. 6 Vedangas. Siksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Chandash, Jyotisha, Nirukta. So 4 plus 6 is 10. Then comes Dharma Shastra, Purana, Itihasa, Tarka or Nyaya. And then comes Mimamsa. So Vidya Sthan. Where do you find information? Chaturdasha Vidya Sthanam. That you need to understand. In Sanatana Dharma, there are 14 different texts or 14 different knowledge bases which our preceptors have given authority to. These are Vedas, Vedangas. Vedas plus Vedangas equal to 10. Then comes Mimamsa, Nyaya or Tarka, Dharma Shastra, and then Purana, Itihasas. So there are 14 different Vidya Sthanas. So Yajnavalkya says this. So Yajnavalkya says, if you need to understand the Sanatana Dharma, there are 14 places which are abundant of knowledge. Knowledge ka bhandar. You should go. These are Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharmashastranga Mishritaha, Vedasthanani, Vidyanam, Dharmasya, Chaturdashaha, Vidyanam Sthanani, Chaturdashaha. What are the Chaturdasha it gives? So this is from Yajnavalkya Smriti. Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharmashastranga Mishritaha, Vedaha, Sthanani Vidyanam, dharmasya chaturdashaha. Okay, so 14 different Vidyasthan. And Vedas are very much relevant. So Vedas are extremely relevant. Vedas talk about the way of living. And the first and foremost way of living is Satya. You have to be truthful. Truthful to the God, truthful to you, truthful to the family, and truthful to the society. Satya, Satya, Satya. Satyam Param Dharma. And that is the reason. What is the logo for, what is the mudra logo for Bharat? Bharat Sarkar ka mudra kya? Singh ke Satyameva Jayate. That is the phrase. Yes, that phrase is from Mundakopanishad. And this was picked up by Madan Mohan Malviya. He is the one who propagated this when he was in senior position with Indian National Congress. He is the one who propagated this, said this is the value of Bharat Sarkar. Satyameva Jayate. Mundakopanishad mein hai. Satyameva Jayate. Na anritam, not untruth. The victorious one is Satya, not the falsehood. Satyena Panta Vitato Devayanaha. The great path where Devas, even Devas and Rishis follow to attain knowledge is only through Satyam. Satyameva Jayate na anritaha. Na anritam. Satyena Panta. The Panta to reach the supreme level. Satyena Panta. This is the Rajapath. Chakkani Rajamargamu Undaka. Tyagaraja Swami says, Bhakti Margam. Chakkani Rajamargam. Chakkani. There is a best way, best path to reach Rama is nothing but bhakti. Bhakti vina jnanamu. He says without bhakti there is no use in jnana. Similarly, the great pantha, the deva yana. Yana means path. Pantha means path. So satyena pantha vitato devayanaha yena kramanti rishayo. This is how they obtain things. How do they obtain superior things? What are the superior things for rishis? The superior things for rishis is the understanding of Brahman. Yena kramanti rishayo hi aptakamaha yatra tat satyasya paramam. Yatra tat sasyasya param. Satya is the paramam. To attain that, they always practice Satya. So Satyameva Jayate. What did Valmiki write? Valmiki wrote when Dasharatha was convincing Kaikeyi to take back her vows back. He says, Satyena lokan jayati dheenan dhanena cha. He says, what is Rama? Satyena lokan jayati. He is nothing but embodiment of Dharma. He wins everything with Satya. Where did he get this? Satyameva Jayate from Mundaka Upanishad. So what did we say? Itihasa is nothing but Veda Upabrahmanarthaya. To explain Veda, these Purana and Itihasas came, and that is the reason the exact phrase Satyameva Jayate, which comes in Mundaka Upanishad, Valmiki uses it and then portrays this with his kavya, with his hero Ramachandra Murti. So Satyena Lokan Jayati. Maricha and Kumbhakarna also talks very highly of Rama's Satya embodiment. Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha Sadhu Satya Parakramaha Raja Sarvasya Lokasya Devanam Vasavo Yatha. This you have to memorize. So why did we say this? Because why did they put Puran? Because Puran is nothing but explanatory text to these Vedas. And the first set of explanatory text to Vedas is Vedangas. They are shut. They are 6 Vedangas. 4 Vedas, 6 Vedangas. Next comes Puran because it explains in a easier way which people can understand. That is known as Itihasa Purana. Itihasana, contemporary. The writer of the Itihasa will be contemporary to the acts given in that structure. Pura api navam iti Puranam. So the deeds of Puranam would have happened so many years back. The author may not be living in the same era. Whereas the main requirement for Itihasa is it should be written by a contemporary author. Valmiki was living in the same time of Rama. Vedavyasa was living in the same time when Bhishma was born, when Duryodhana was born, Karna, Kumbhakarna, Karna, Dharma, everybody were born. So, Mahabharata or Ramayana. Of Mahabharata and Ramayana, Ramayana gets precedence. Okay. And then comes Mahabharata. So, Purana, that's what we said, because Purana explains what is a good, give an example of how Itihasa Purana actually reflects the Artha or reflects the tells of Veda. Give one example. The good example is what is said in Mundaka Upanishad, Satyameva Jayate. Valmiki wrote a text explaining how Satya is to be practiced using the hero of the text, Rama, but he uses the same word, somewhere he infuses it, and that infusion takes place in Ayodhya Kand, 12th Sarga, as a discussion between Valmiki and Kaikeyi. That you have to remember. 12th Sarga, discussion between Dashrath and Kaikeyi. Satyena lokan jayati dhinani dhanena cha. And then if he has to quell the enemies in Yuddha, he uses his valor. Okay, Mundaka Upanishad. And then Vedas have become part and parcel of the Indian living. In India, apart from doctors and engineers, the other most powerful community, of course, lawyers and then chartered accountants. This you need to understand. Like the motto for the Indian Bharat Sarkar, Satyameva Jayate, the motto for the Institute of Chartered Accountants, CA Walo, they are very powerful. That is nothing but Yesha Supteshu Jagartihi. Yesha Supteshu Jagartihi. I'll explain the meaning. So this is the exact phrase which since 1949, the Institute of Chartered Accountants was formed in India in 1949, just 2 years after the independence. Very powerful body. Auditors are rich people. Okay. And they also make others rich. Anyway, in good or bad way, don't ask me. Leave it to God. Auditors, right? India mein itna idhar to CPS. Here also they are rich. Okay. So their motto is Yesha Supteshu Jagarti. That means he is the one who is awake. This mentions about the God, Brahman. Supreme is awake when we are all sleeping. He doesn't sleep. He only does yoga nidra. It's just an act. Even then, when he is closing his eyes, he is only chintan karta hai. Hum jaise manush ko kya kya dena. Aisa wo Paramatma chintan karta hai. So, yesha supteshu. We are all sleeping. Supta mane sleep. When we are all sleeping, he is awake. Paramatma is awake. Likewise, why did they use this phrase? Because auditors have to be very watchful. Auditors have to be very careful. That was the intended meaning. So they picked it from Kathopanishad. Yesha supteshu jagarti kamam purusho nimirmanaha nirmimanaha tadeva shukram. Then it explains about Brahman. Kathopanishad is the exchange between Nachiketas, young boy, and Yamadharmaraja. Then, in responding, what is the nature of Brahman? Don't worry, what is Brahman? The Brahman is always watching you. When you are all sleeping, Yesha Supteshu Jagarti. He is awake. Jagarti means Jagart. He is awake. He is very careful. Then, he is the pristine truth. Shukram, tad eva shukram. He is the pristine truth. White mane, shukram mane white. Shukram mane blemishless, spotless. Tadeva shukram. What? So the explanation was given about the Brahman. That Brahman is always awake. Likewise, why the Institute of Chartered Accountants used it is auditors have to be always awake and be watchful what that their clients are doing. They have to be very careful with the account, with the money. So they used this phrase, even though the Kathopanishad was said on something else, but it is very apt. What I am saying is these Vedas are getting into impact into multiple ways. Bharat Sarkar ka motto, Satyameva Jayate. Similarly, ya yesha supteshu jagati, be awake. Ye amritasya putra. Also Vivekananda used to say that, Swamiji, awake, arise. Right? Ye arya amritasya putra. Likewise, so it is then tadeva shukram. So Brahman, the supreme God, is always awake. He is pristine. He has no blemish. Tadeva amrutam. He is the one which is imperishable. See, Kathopanishad. So, Satyam. Then what does this Veda preach? Veda preaches, Ano Badra Kratavo Yantu Vishwatah Krinvanto Vishwamaryam. Aryam means ration. Let us gather in unison. Let us gather knowledge from everywhere. Ano Badra. Badra means Mangalam. Ano Badha Kratavantu Vishwataha. From everywhere. Krinvanto Vishwavaryam. What do you do with that knowledge you have gained? You do good thing. Krinvantu. Kuru. You do karo. Karo no Krinvantu. You do good things for the well-being of the entire world. Viswam mane universe. Ano Badra Kratavo Yantu Vishwa. Ye to Rigved ka hai. Okay. Then apagnanto, I just curse people who are misers, who are stingy. Be generous in giving money, be generous in giving time, be generous in giving knowledge. Apagnanto. I don't want to, in a word, apagnanto means I hate. Literal translation. But apagnanto means people should not be miser. Give as much as you can, and it is the only thing that doesn't diminish when you give it to somebody is jnana. It only will improve. So the Veda also gets angry. Apagnanto aranvaha. Aranvaha. That means money. The people who don't give money are people who don't give wealth. According to Veda, then wealth is knowledge. You don't give, then curse them. That's also Rigveda says. So, ya yesha supteshu jakarti kamam purusho nirmimanaha tadeva shukram tad brahma tadeva amrutam uchyate. So, Vedas are part and parcel of living. You don't just take Vedas or something, you just use it, recite it without understanding, put the ghee in the fire. That's not for Vedas are meant for. It's part of that Veda's duty. Nobody denies. But Vedas are way of living. Now, how does it do that? Manushancha swadhyaya pravachanecha. Manusham means humanity. Veda clearly says, you have to contribute to the society in its own way. Swadhyaya. This is your practice. The practice for every Sanatani is to do good to the humanity. Manushancha swadhyaya pravachanecha. You got to do service manusham for the well-being of the manushya log. Manushya mane kya hai? All the trees, all the animals, everything. You have to take care. The one four-legged, the sanno astu dvipate chanchatushpade om. So what we say? Sanno mangalam. Let mangalam be to the people who are walking with two legs, human being. Let mangalam be for tiryaks. Tiryaks mane the animals with four legs. Sanno astu dvipate chanchatushpade. Let it be shanti. Let it be peace. Atma peace. Let it be peace everywhere. So, Sanatana Dharma is based on Vedas and Vedantas. And the first and foremost is, we have to be obedient to the Supreme. He is watching always. Ya yesha supteshu jhakarti. Tadeva brahmam. Tad shukram. Tad amritam iti uchyate. That's the thing. So, and to do that, you got to refine yourself. And to refine yourself is when the religious acts or mata, religion came. Right? So, and the basis is manushancha swadhyaya pravachanecha. Then it says sriyadeyam. Give money, knowledge. Money, here knowledge. But you have to be afraid and give. Whether the amount I am giving, is it enough? Or should I give more? Bhiya. With some fear you have to give. Then hriyadeyam. Be dutiful. Hriya mane with lajja. Give with lajja. That I am giving. Will he take it? Sriyadeyam, hriyadeyam, bhiyadeyam, samvidadeyam. Give knowledge, give money, give time. But don't think you are giving. Kill that ego. So when does it ego come? Ego comes if you have wants. And kama, Gita also says, kama, krodha. Krodha mane Sanskrit mein paryay pada manyuhu. Kamaha, manyuhu. Kamaha, akarshit. Whatever the bad deeds we are doing, it is because of my interest in something. My wantedness in something. So, hey God, quell that kama. Adharmic kama. It never says you should not have dharmic kama. It never says you should not get married. It never says you should not get progenies. You have to, because those are dharmic kamas. So if my kamas, if my wants are adharmic, hey Supreme, quell that. How do you quell that? You keep your mind occupied. How do you keep your mind occupied? By learning Vedas, doing all the yaga yajnadis, doing nitya anushtana. So you keep your body, mind active and busy. So then your interest, your wants in unnecessary things slowly goes down as you mature. So kama. And then if your wants are not quelled or satisfied, then that leads to anger. When anger comes, peace gets lost. So when we start learning Vedas every year, so you have to first tell to yourself, hey kama, these bad things I am not doing. Kama akarshit. Manyuhu akarshit. So they made it as a ritual practice called kamo karshit mantra japa. But the intended meaning is to understand what is the root cause of all these sufferings. Unwanted karma. If your desires are not fulfilled, you get angry. That is your reaction. As Newton says, for every action there is a reaction. If your desires are not fulfilled, that leads to anger. Anger leads to so many distress. So first quell your unwanted karma. That you do by keeping your mind and body busy. That is the reason yaga yajnadis were done. Yuji sangati karane. So all these are given. Where do I get the information on all these 14 knowledge bases? So we have learned today the 14 knowledge bases. What are those? Purana, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Dharma Shastranga Mishritaha, Vedas Sthanani Vidyanam, Dharmasya cha Taturdashaha. 14 Vedas, Vedangas equals to 10. Then Mimamsa, Nyaya or Tarka, and Dharma Shastra, and then Mimamsa. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, Siksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas, Jyotisha, Purana / Itihasa or Bhakti Granth. You take it anything. Later text. Nyaya or Tarka, Mimamsa, Dharma Shastra. What are Dharma Shastras? Dharma Shastras are all the literature which have been compiled by rishis. Like Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, Vasishta Smriti, Parasara Smriti, like that. Smriti Vachakas, Bodhayana Sutras, Apastamba Sutras, all these are. So, to understand the Brahman and superiority of Brahman and Atma Swarupam, you have 3 major texts. which also belong to this 14 dasa, Chaturdasha Vidyasnana. But among those Chaturdasha Vidyasnana, Veda and the concise portions of Vedas given in aphorism, sutras, written by Veda Vyasa, Brahma Sutra and its explanatory text by various leaders, religious leaders. The second one is Upanishads. Principal Upanishads are 10. And then Bhagavad Gita, because it is Krishna Upanishad. We say it is, what is this? Iti Bhagavad Gitayam Upanishatsu. Each chapter when we finish, we remind that Ye Krishna Arjuna Samvade. Don't take that this is just a discussion between Arjuna and Krishna. It is Upanishad. Krishna Arjuna Samvade Upanishatsu Brahma Sutrayam. So Brahma Sutra, Upanishad, our Bhagavad Gita. So knowledge basis. So today's lecture focused on knowledge basis in Sanatana Dharma equals to 14. Last class we studied about Veda. We had a glimpse on what are Chaturdasa Vidya Sthanams. So we learnt knowledge basis in Sanatana Dharma. Okay? Shubham. Mangalam bhavati. Dhruvante Raja Varuno Dhruvan Devo Brihaspatihi Dhruvanta Indras Chagnischa Rashtan Dharayatam Dhruvam Mangalani Santu.